Everyone. My name is Jessica Park, and I am the career counselor for the College of Engineering. What we're going to talk about today is resumes and Resume 101, basically getting started with your basic resume. And so, what I'm going to do here is attempt to share my screen and go through a brief presentation with you. So, give me just a moment. Okay, so we are going to talk about engineering your resume for success today, and that can mean a bunch of things. And you being data science students or whether you're engineering students, no matter what your major, this is going to be really helpful for you, especially geared toward the data science and engineering fields. And so the biggest question is, do you tailor your resume? And that is a very gray area question. There are definitely ways that you can tailor your resume in terms of using keywords from the job description. Some of you might even need to write a cover letter where you would actually highlight more of those keywords from the job description. But generally your resume will not change very much. There are a couple of general tips that I want to mention, though, in terms of online and Word resume templates. I would not advise using those. We have a very effective template, and I have actually a great Word document template that I send to many, many students that are much more effective in terms of getting past applicant tracking system software, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. And then, you can always add your unique items from the template that I have or the template on the Career Development Center website as well, just to make it a little bit more your own. One of the things that has changed in the last perhaps several years is the applicant tracking system software, which is basically a way for large companies who receive a large amount of resumes and applications to be able to make that general first cut of candidates that apply that may not be obviously qualified for the position that they're applying for. And so, the biggest thing about applicant tracking systems is that they do not play well with certain highly formatted resumes, such as any types of resumes with headers, footers, columns, text boxes. That's why the resume that I'm getting ready to go through is very simple. It's very top to bottom, left to right, not a lot of fancy formatting, and it is actually intended exactly for that purpose, because we want to make sure that any resume that you submit gets through applicant tracking system software quickly, so that you have the greatest chance possible of getting the internship or full-time job that you are applying for. So first three sections of your resume, we'll kind of go into, what those might be here quickly. So first of all, you're going to have your skills summary section. Hard skills instead of soft skills. Any programs, programming languages, any type of foreign languages that you might know. Those are all things that will be great for the skills summary section. And it's actually going to tie very well into your project section, which if you're a data science student, might be data science projects is the title of the heading. Or if you're engineering, it might be engineering projects or research projects. Any of those would work just fine. So backing up a little bit, your second section is going to be your education section. That's going to be the formal name of your degree and the completion date. And if your GPA is below a 3.0, I would advise to go ahead and leave it off, just so that you don't immediately disqualify yourself from certain jobs that might have a hard target for GPA. So the idea is to get employers to want to read more into your resume. So if you're still working on your GPA and working on getting it above a 3 point, let's go ahead and leave it off if it's below a 3 point for now. So in your project section, what we're going to do is in your project section and work experience sections, we're going to have reverse chronological order for basically all of the sections in your resume. So what that means is that the most recent thing that you have done, we're going to put that on the top of the relevant section, and then we're going to go backwards from there. So most recent engineering or data science project, put it on the top of the project section. Same for work experience section. You want to have the title, the name of the organization, and you also want to have the dates that you worked for each experience. Same with the research project as well, even if it's just the semester and the year, just so that employers will know and have a good idea of when you did what in terms of your projects. Again, no headers and footers, no columns, no, no text boxes. All of these things are not applicant tracking system friendly. So here's just a little bit of a visual on the resume piece, just for those of you who may be a little bit more visual learners. So at first you have your skills summary, the education section, and then you see the engineering project section, and then the work experience section. So the idea behind this is to have all of your relevant experiences for your major as close to the top of your resume as possible, so that employers can very easily identify if you are qualified for the particular position or internship that you're applying for. So we're going to keep going here a little bit more. And so using appropriate section headlines, you don't want to be too overly creative with section headlines because of applicant tracking system software. So, any of the appropriate section headlines might be academic background, additional skills, leadership, honors and awards, your like we mentioned, engineering projects or data science projects, related coursework, which might possibly fall under your education if you wanted it to be there as well. And so the biggest thing here is you want to not necessarily reinvent the wheel when it comes to using section headlines, because it may confuse applicant tracking system software if the position you're applying for is going through that type of software to be posted. Okay, so the rest of the section headings can really match your experiences and your professional organizations, leadership, just depending on who you are as a student. So if you have leadership, if you're in registered student organizations, if you have international experience, meaning, if you have some study abroad experience that you would potentially like to add to your resume, just to enhance the multifacetedness of your resume and who you are as a person. And then also the certifications and honors sections as well, if those apply to you as a student. So bullet point structure, just a little bit on this. So what do you do? Who or what benefited? What was the general result or goal? So the general idea behind writing bullet points is you want to kind of have them be as kind of intense with information as possible, but not so lengthy that it just takes up space and doesn't really mean anything. So, numbers, bullet points, though, none of them ever need a period, because most of the time they're going to be starting with an action verb. And so they're not necessarily full sentences. They're just phrases. So most bullet points do not ever need a period. And anytime that you can use numbers, always very helpful. It helps employers move through your resume, and it also adds detail and value to your resume. So, so you can see a couple of the examples below in terms of using a good numbers, $3,000, 31%, 50%. It really just helps give value and specificity to your resume. And again, you want to start every bullet point with an action verb if you can. You want to make sure that they are in present tense for the positions that you might still be in, and past tense for positions that you have quit, or that you have gone, that you have left those positions, indicating that they're finished. So, those are the biggest things in terms of using your action verbs. And you can always right click on any action verbs that you use to get some of these synonyms, so that you're not using the exact same verbs for every entry on your resume. Okay, so here's a little bit of an example of bullet points that have been written, and it's not bad bullet points, but there's definitely not enough detail, because anyone that, let's say in this example, who has worked in a restaurant setting, anyone, more than likely has done one or most of these things. So, you want to add a little bit more detail just to give employers an idea of the extent of your experience at that particular job, even if it's not related to your major. Because again, the positions that are not related to your major are just as important, because they teach you those life skills, customer service, being somewhere on time, if you had to wear a uniform, a shirt, that type of thing. So again, back to our bullet point method here. So these bullet points, not necessarily enough detail, but better is, a little bit more meaty of a description. So, communicated the needs of customers, food allergies, made sure that you calculated tabs and tips correctly, all of those things. All of those things really do make a difference in terms of making sure that your bullet points really give a good snapshot of what you did for a particular experience, either in your research section or in your work experience section. Okay, so in terms of just a few little tiny tidbits about your heading, you want to use a professional email address. If you're a senior or a grad student, you want to add a LinkedIn URL if you want to, if you want it to be viewed by employers and if it's ready to be viewed by employers. And you will also want to use the same heading from your resume on your cover letter if in fact you need a cover letter. And so your project section, now this is going to be where you put the bulk of your experiences, and most of these are going to come from your classroom setting, from your lab setting, or even personal projects that you may have done. You want to give detail for each of the projects that you've done because this is really going to highlight where employers will see that you have the relevant experience that they need to bring you into their organizations. So you're going to have for each project, whether it's data science or engineering, you're going to have a title, then you're going to have the semester that you did that project, and then maybe 2 or 3 good bullet points kind of describing what you did so that employers can have a good snapshot of what you did. Then your work experience section, like we mentioned a little earlier, you want to make sure and put the location and the date. And this is where you can highlight some of those soft skills of, okay, you're great at time management and working with people. Expand a little bit on that. Example of time management in the first bullet. So, work 20 hours a week while completing 15 to 17 college credits per semester as a full-time student. That's great. So that gives a lot more description than just very good at time management. So be specific. Make sure and use numbers when you can in your work experience section. Okay, so here's some just general space savers. So one of the things, margins can go as small as zero 0.5 inches on all sides. You want to make sure and combine sections or bullets to utilize the white space on a line or on a page itself. You don't want to have a whole line dedicated to 2 or 3 words in a bullet point. If you can, either add more description to that bullet point or combine bullet points so that you can start to save space and make room for other things in your project section. You want to notice redundant or optional items, and you want to see what can be shortened to one line or just combined in other lines. A few things you don't want to do when it comes to your resume is you don't want to make font sizes below a 10. Now remember, you're creating your resume for the reader, and so if it's too small, it may just get the toss because people may not be able to read it. So you never want to have your font sizes below a 10, and you don't want to make the margins so tight that they go to the very edge of the page because it's just, readability goes down and it's just too busy for one page. And again, don't use headers, don't use footers, don't use columns, don't use text boxes. All of these things are to keep your document applicant tracking system friendly. And, a couple of things in terms of being outdated, using an objective statement or a references available upon request at the end of your resume, those are actually considered outdated. So if you come from the professional world and would like to highlight some of your professional experiences in addition to your schoolwork, you could have a professional summary potentially at the top. But in general, objective statements are considered pretty much, out of date. And some final touches. Proofread. Remember to proofread it more than once. Have it reviewed by others. Have it reviewed by me. Have it reviewed by as many people as you can to make sure there's no typos, to make sure that the grammar is sound, just to make sure that it's as perfect as it can be so that you can just apply freely to anything that you feel you might be capable of doing. So, come back to it a couple of days later if that's what it takes too. Sometimes you see something in a different light in a couple of days. So if you need to take a break for a day or two, come back, then you can reread it with a fresh pair of eyes. So print on resume paper if handing it directly to or mailing resume to an employee. That is very rare unless we're kind of at a STEM fair nowadays. But even at the STEM fair, handing a resume to an employer, they don't mind if it's on regular paper. If you're going to be emailing it, I would email it as a PDF. You want to make sure that the document stays exactly how it looks and that it's not changeable, whether on purpose or accident, when you email it to someone. And so all of these principles, these apply to, anything from the job search to grad school to anything else that needs a resume as well. Okay, so I hope that this was helpful for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me at jepark@uark.edu, or please feel free to make an appointment in Handshake as well, and we can have more individual one-on-one time to talk about your resume. Have a great day, everyone.